Hi everyone, Arabel here with Chic Innovator, where we love to highlight fascinating topics and fascinating people. It's also Pride Month. As during many months, you get to meet individuals that are making an incredible difference in our communities, as well as many that are impactful leaders in the LGBTQ community. I'd like to introduce you to Frankie Miranda. Frankie is the first openly gay president and CEO of the Hispanic Federation. He has worked directly with multiple relief efforts, including efforts with Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico. Frankie has been president of the Hispanic Federation since 2019, and he has continuously provided stalwart leadership for the Latino community and beyond through some of the hardest times in recent history, including the COVID-19 pandemic. Take a listen as we talk about his experience as an openly gay leader in the Latino community, breaking stereotypes, and how he goes so much further than that extra mile. You'll also get to hear about what keeps him going in times of distress, as well as the story of his 10-year long-distance relationship with his husband, Ricardo. So ready? Here we go. You're watching Chic Innovator. Stay tuned for fascinating topics, fascinating people that have style and are innovative. You're watching Chic Innovator. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It's free. Hi, everybody. I'm very excited to introduce you to a very good friend of mine, Frankie Miranda. He is the first openly gay president and CEO of the Hispanic Federation. Welcome, Frankie.
Well, thank you so much for this opportunity and for this conversation. The Hispanic Federation is an umbrella organization with more than 800 members and partners in 40 states, DC, Puerto Rico, and the US Virgin Islands. We were created in 1990 as the need of an umbrella organization in New York City to represent the Latino nonprofit sector here in our area. New York is a federated town. There were many other communities and sectors that were represented by other umbrellas. And in 1990, a group of visionary leaders, including Luis Miranda. Luis is the father of Lin-Manuel Miranda. Luis and I are not directly related. However, Luis is married to another incredible leader and advocate called Luz Towns Miranda, and Luz is my father's cousin. So my grandmother and Lin-Manuel's grandmothers were sisters. So we are second cousins, right? So, but not related to the Miranda side. So my father is Miranda Rosado. Luz's maiden name is Towns Rosado. So through the maternal line, I am related to Lin-Manuel, but it's a common thing that people say to Luis all the time or to Lin-Manuel. Hey, I was with your son or your brother, and they're just like, okay, you're talking about Frankie. So it's all good group of leaders and people, and I'm very honored to be able to continue the legacy of this organization.
Frankie, you come from a great family, you have a great family, and congratulations for that.
It is. I'm very proud of the commitment to community, the commitment to our culture, and to thinking about legacy. What is going to be, how are we going to leave this world in a better place, in a better way than we found it? So Hispanic Federation is now a national organization doing public policy at the national level through our office in Washington, D.C. We have regional offices, including in Chicago, and where we do also regional public policy and also supporting organizations. And how? Our DNA is to support Latino organizations direct service providers that are doing incredible work in the community, but many of them started with a group of concerned citizens wanting to solve something around a kitchen table and saying, we're going to start an organization to try to help this issue in my community. But what we do is to look at these organizations and help them be stronger, be an organization that, I know that you do great work, but how are we going to take you to the next level? It is like that opportunity of like, you can go after $1 million grant, but you need a grant writer. Or that you have not been able to upgrade your financial systems. How are we going to make sure that for the next opportunity, you are stronger and that you can continue these incredible work of the organizations? Because these are economic engines in communities. These are organizations that establish, hire, and work with communities, and they are in many ways the economic pathway out of poverty for many members of our community.
Well, and many of these organizations in your organization also become a source of education for many, many people. For example, if some people want to learn English, they go to some of these organizations. Or if they want to learn how to run a business, they go to these organizations. There are so many tools that these organizations, including your own, provide. But I do have a question, and as you know, I'm involved in a lot of different organizations myself and want to give back. But one of the things that I see and I've wondered about is that many times in our community, in the Latino community, we end up seeing whenever there's a need, you see kind of a new organization popping up, and there's another need in another organization, when in essence, I think what would be great is if you see more collaboration and working together. Is that something that your organization is working on, either in fundraising or to maybe put a couple of organizations together to work on something, to grow in the power? I feel sometimes that there's just too many organizations that are out there, many of which are doing like a single part of one thing instead of joining forces and collaborating and doing, something bigger, better. Could you talk a little bit
Absolutely.
about that?
One of the things that the Federation is known for is for coalition building. How do we bring people to the table and start collaborating? I have a perfect example in Puerto Rico. After Hurricane Maria, we started a relief effort that became the largest nonprofit relief effort in Puerto Rico. Many organizations, this was all focused on supporting community-based organizations serving as first responders and providing solutions for their community. But in Puerto Rico, before the Federation coming in, it was actually not a great thing to work together. A lot of people were not used to do coalition building. There has been some attempts in the past that were not very successful. And the Federation came in and started creating tables, creating coalitions in which many organizations, they were not going to agree on everything, but they will be able to move forward on a specific agenda. And it's very different when one organization is raising their concern to stakeholders, the private sector, government, the foundations. When you have one organization that is afraid, or they feel that they cannot raise their voices, that this is going to be detrimental to the work that they're doing. But when 30 organizations are coming together, we can actually create change, to be the catalyst for policy, for changes in investments, for the seriousness of these different voices coming together. So even in Puerto Rico, there has been some controversial bills that have been put forward that these coalitions have been able to say, as a group, as a coalition, as a united voice, being able to say, this is the participatory process that we went through. We are representing very diverse communities, and we are in favor or opposed of certain bills, and they have been very successful. But it's a reality in which we can have, especially in these times, have to work together for a common goal. And again, our expertise is that we're not going to agree on everything, but we have to bring people to the table. And that is very much particularly special for government, the private sector, the philanthropy sector, and the direct service providers. And at least we're going to always find a way to create and ensure change. For us, it's not about pushing people out of the table. This is about bringing people to the table.
Right, exactly. I think that that's one of the most important things that we can do, bring collaboration together. And I'm so grateful to you and the organization to hear that you're doing that. I'm curious though, there's so many changes that are happening right now in our country. And one of the things that I found, I've worked on a couple of transition committees, mostly gubernatorial here in Illinois. But when you're putting these committees together and you're putting the chairs together, a lot of the chairs for those transition committees, even though it's gubernatorial or governmental, many of them are CEOs of corporations. And I know that you have a lot of CEOs of corporations that are sitting on your board. I'm wondering what the buzz is from those CEOs, from the private sector. What are you hearing with regards to some of the changes that are taking place on a national level? Could you share with us some of that, give us some of that input from your board or from other corporations that you deal with?
It's definitely a conversation that is happening right now at many different levels. What is the future of diversity, equity, and inclusion? What exactly does this mean? What is the affirmative action decision from the Supreme Court on very specific on education is going to affect the workplace? And there's a lot of conversations from many different points of view. Our work and our job is to ensure that companies understand that culturally competent, linguistically competent approach, that making sure that they have a diverse workforce is going to lead to good business.
Frankie, so I have to ask you to repeat that again, because that's quite a mouthful that you're saying. Culturally competent. Could you repeat that?
Culturally competent, linguistically competent. If I have somebody, when I go to a financial institution that looks like me, that understands my culture, that understands some of the potential hurdles that my family have, or the idea that the group of people that we're coming from, that I have certain specific needs, is going to lead to good business. At the end of the day, this is about the bottom line. And there is also this sense that some of these programs are giving an advantage to certain members of communities that do not deserve. And that is very insulting to me and to all of us, because the fact is that, Arabel, you are a very successful businesswoman.
Thank you.
Not because you got a competitive advantage, because you deserve it. All of us that we are in these circles, we deserve to be in the positions and in the circles that we are right now. However, these programs and these ideas is just to make sure that that kid that may not have the money, the access, or the contacts, but is very, very talented, will have a fighting chance to be able to go to college, be part of an organization or a workplace, or opening a new business. We know that Latinas are the number one driver of opening new businesses open in this country. So the idea is that at the end of the day, we need to make sure that these companies understand that regardless what is the political climate, at the end of the day, they want more people to go through their stores, to access their website, to be able to consume their products. And this is all.
And that is so true. And we consume a lot.
Correct. Of course. So there has been this confusion of whether or not this is discriminatory to certain communities versus the other. The idea here is that we give the opportunity to find the best talent. This is about finding talent that is going to help the bottom line of companies. So we need to tell our stories, and I'm so honored to be part of this podcast, because this is about showing that our community has so much to offer, and that our stories are elevated in a way they need to be elevated in a way that people understand that this is not about asking for favors. This is about giving opportunities to people that deserve opportunities.
Frankie, I think the other part of it is that all we want to do is an opportunity to provide great service, to provide great products. As you know, I have a tech company, AAR Tech, and we've been around for 20 years. We've got a great track record. People know us, and all we want to do is provide great service and let people know how much of a good job we're willing to do. I have great engineers that are ready, willing, and able, and there's a lot of other businesses such as ours. And over the years, we've created these great partnerships, and they're helping us and we're helping them. So I think the majority of us are in for the long haul. We really care about our country. I know I love this country very much. And we want to be a part of the success. We want to be a part of it growing and moving forward. But the collaboration that we talked about with the corporations and with organizations has to take place, and has to take place, I think, in a positive way. It's an interesting dialogue that I think a lot of people are having, and I'm so glad to hear that you're having those dialogues with some really large corporations around the country. I think it's about a lot of us talking to each other and supporting each other, and again, having the best interests of our country to move it forward.
Absolutely.
With regards to our country, we want it to grow, we want it to excel, and I know you have the same intent.
And again, I can give you another quick, perfect example. This week, we just came back from making an announcement about making sure we have digital centers across the country, where we started this program because we know that half of Latinos don't have the digital skills for the jobs of the future. This is an initiative to make sure that many of our organizations can open digital centers that are workforce development, economic opportunity for people. And we have seen that people that go through these training programs see $10,000 on average of increase in their annual income. And those that continue in these courses into the more tech programming and doing more into getting into the tech company, into the tech industry, they see six-figure salary increases. So what are we seeing here is that
something
these
so
programs,
simple is just understanding our phones. I mean, I think a lot of us don't even understand all the capabilities of our phones. And if we did, you can make a lot of money. There's a lot of people working on social media that are making tons of money just by using social media.
Correct. And the fact is that, more people that are going to be skilled in having these digital skills are better workers, better candidates for jobs. There is talent. We're doing courses in which understanding artificial intelligence. We don't need just to be consumers of artificial intelligence. We can be creators, and we can influence how the technology goes into the future. So having these type of programs is not bad for the economy or for society. These are programs that ensure that we're going to put into the pipeline people that can actually have a better life, that are going to contribute to the economy, that are going to be able to contribute to technology, and to be able to just when you go into any type of job right now, as you mentioned, has to have digital skills. So when you say that these programs are giving competitive advantage, or this is going to hand out to a community, it's like, no, this is about making sure that we are able to provide the best talent possible to many companies, and also more people connected to the internet, more people connected to online purchasing and retailing and all of that. So at the end of the day, I think that there's going to be a self-correction into this conversation, and people are going to understand that at the bottom line is always going to be good. These programs are going to be good. We saw it with companies like Costco, where the majority of shareholders basically voted is like, our digital equity and inclusion programs work, and it worked for our customer base, and we're going to continue. And there was a resounding rejection of this policy that basically tried to paint DEI as something problematic.
Yes, well, I'm glad to hear that they're kind of limiting the way that they're changing, and that different companies are maybe looking at different ways, different titles that they're using, but to still be doing the same thing. The way they're approaching it hopefully is in a positive way. You know that at the end of the day, it's about the profits, and it's in the long run, are they going to get better products? Are they going to get better service? And if that's not there, then whatever title you put on it is not going to help anybody. I know from my perspective, and you're also that type of individual, that we are looking at what corporations are doing. It makes a difference of where I'm going to buy. And I'm a woman, so 80% of the purchases that I make, like many other women, are the ones that run the country. And so we are taking a look at what corporations are doing, what direction they're going. It's very important when I make a decision of what I'm going to buy. And so, I'm glad, again, that the companies that we're looking at are analyzing everything and looking where the profit is coming from, where is your money coming from, as well as, what kind of service you're going to get. And maybe you need to modify your language a little bit, meaning the corporations. I'm glad you're working with them to help them do that, because it's important for them to know that we are watching and we are paying attention in the long run, and that this will make a difference for us. So Frankie, you seem to be everywhere, and I know that you're one of the first openly gay leaders, to lead an organization that's this large in the Latino community. And I got to meet your partner, which was really great, Ricardo. You guys are so great together. I think the success factor is into your DNA. Some of it, I know constantly comes from evaluating yourself and kind of where you're at. You are really a great leader. And, I love that whether you're at the podium or whether people are talking to you one-on-one, you just make everybody feel very comfortable. That's really great about you.
Well, thank you for that. I'm really, moved, and thank you for saying that. I started the Federation very young. I started at the Federation after finishing my master's degree in performance studies at NYU. That's what brought me from Puerto Rico to New York. And suddenly I found myself back in 1998 looking for a job, and people were just looking at me, thick accent. I was with a master's degree from NYU, but people were just really not interested in giving me an opportunity. And my first opportunity came here at the Hispanic Federation in 1998, working on a special program supporting organizations that were not big enough to be considered a nonprofit organization, 501c3, but they were doing incredible work in the community. And this was a program to provide small grants to baseball leagues for children, tenants association, senior centers, activities doing batuteras or anything cultural. And these were grants of like $400, $500. And people were so grateful because they were able to buy sports equipment for children, or being able to feed people in a cultural celebration. So started my career here at the Hispanic Federation, had the opportunity to later on work on a couple of political campaigns, including Hillary Clinton run for Senate for the first time here in the state of New York, representing New York. Then transitioned to go and work for Univision as Director of Communications and Community Engagement, and then came back to the Hispanic Federation in 2006. And I had been at the Federation since then. But the opportunity to become president of the Federation came in December of 2019. And I have to say, Arabel, I was very happy with the portfolio that I had at the time, because I was working mostly on the portfolio of Puerto Rico, which I always felt like I left the island, and I always felt that I wanted to contribute back to my island. And after Hurricane Maria, that opportunity came about to provide support to so many community projects that were happening in Puerto Rico. The board said, Frankie, don't worry, 2020 is going to be a piece of cake for you. You can do this with your eyes closed. And on my first meeting after the holiday was the earthquake in Puerto Rico. And then a few weeks later was the lockdown, pandemic lockdown in New York. So my tenure as a president, I consider that it has been a president, a leadership in crisis mode, right? Constantly dealing with natural disasters, man-made disasters.
So it sounds like the COVID period was a great place to train your leadership. I know for many of us, we kind of felt that we had to go into steroid mode and become leaders as fast as quickly as
all
possible.
of the things that we were experiencing in the last 5 years that had been in transition constantly. So what I try to do, Arabel, with my team is to really listen and really sit down and talk to my team and come up with not what Frankie wants, but what the team, the trusted group of people that I have here at the Federation, that sometimes I feel that they are even more prepared. Because sometimes when you are in the leadership position, sometimes you are so in a bubble that you really are, I miss getting my hands dirty. I knew how many bottles of water, pounds of food were distributed in every single town of Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria. And now I have directors that are so talented that are saying, Frankie, this is the progress that we have made. So my style is that this is a collaborative effort, that this is a group of people, this is a team. And some people have said to me once or twice, they say like, well, it's all good when everything is going well, but the day that something goes bad is only you, the one that is going to be responsible. But I feel that working together, I was one of them. I grew up in the ranks of this organization from the tiny program to now lead this organization. So for me, the expertise that even the program coordinator has to the senior VP are equally important. And another lesson that I learned, it was during the pandemic when we went remote, right? We were on the lockdown. New York really experienced the first major lockdown. And it was a point of view that it was a perspective that it was unique, because we knew that this was going to happen in the rest of the country. So we were using some of the lessons learned in New York to help organizations across the country. But in many instances, Arabel, I was talking to team members on Zoom, in a big Zoom with many different little boxes, and I was not feeling that I was getting a reaction from some of them. They were going through loss of family members. They were going through so much stress, and I decided that I was going to start calling each one of them and ask them how they were doing. Because I wanted to hear from them.
To make a connection, to make a human connection, which I think so many people needed at that time.
To make that connection. Zoom was new to all of us, and we were just basically saying, am I getting through? Am I seeing these eyes that are glued to the camera, but I don't know what's happening in the back of their minds? And that really has shaped my leadership, because I knew that during that time, it was not about being effective, it's about being trusted. And I made a promise to all of them. I said, I cannot advocate for the well-being of my community during this time of crisis if I don't take care of this team. And I'm very proud to say that no one got sick because they were forced to do a specific task during that time. And nobody lost their jobs, because how can I say, oh, we need to protect jobs in our community if I was going to just lay off people during the most important critical time in their lives and their family, losing their income or losing their health insurance?
No, I remember that was such a difficult time for all of us. And Frankie, I don't know if you know this, but actually at one time, and during that time, I was acting chairman for the Chicago Transit Authority, for our CTA, We're number 2 in the country. You guys are number 1. But I remember it was such a difficult time for all of us because we had to do everything, remotely. And I tried as much as possible to communicate with our team on a regular basis, even to call them individually, and just to try to keep the spirits up because, people were working so hard and, facing so many barriers at the time. And the amount of loneliness, was just so difficult for so many people. So it was great that you were connecting on a human level. I think, that was so important. I think many people in leadership positions, hopefully were trying to do that. I remember trying to do that myself with our team, which CTA team did such a great job during that period. There were so many difficulties that so many of our drivers, of our employees faced. I remember that. And it's, such an important thing, I think, to remember that human connection. It's one of the critical things as a leader that you have to remember. I want to ask you, though, a question, if you could share with us a little bit, is what drives you? What internally drives you, and what keeps you going in some of the most difficult times? What keeps you going through some of these more difficult days, not only during COVID, but every day? I think everyone has, a day or two in their lives, or many, when they just don't want to get out of bed, when they just can't face the reality of life and they have to keep going and they have to have something internally that drives them. So I'm curious if you could share with us, because you're constantly facing difficulties. The organization that you run is huge, but it is also very helpful to so many people. So if you could share with us, is there a routine that you follow? Is there something, something that, keeps you going in some of those most difficult times? And is there some sort of foundation that you've created, some discipline that you have? If you could maybe let us know a little bit about that and share that with us. You as the great leader of this organization.
So what drives me? Couple of things. When we talk about work, I think that this organization was created to respond in real time to situations. There is a very unique and very diverse philanthropic environment, ecosystem out there. But we cannot afford the process that a traditional foundation will go through of there is a situation and they have 7 months to go through a process of strategic plan and then release some sort of like program or funding opportunity. Our community, it is important for us to respond in real time, to be a nimble and flexible organization. And maybe it is that our support is smaller in comparison to what other mainstream organizations can do, but we are providing that support, technical assistance, capacity building, grants when the organization needed the most. And according to a report that we did with our agencies post-pandemic, they said a third of them will have shut their operations if it wasn't because of the fast response from Hispanic Federation, calling them, reaching out to them, figuring out what exactly they needed. Some of them was protective equipment, some of them was software, some of them, and particular one clinic was going to reject the vaccine because their systems were not upgraded to be able to track patients in real time and being able to report back to the government on the progress of the vaccine. They were going to reject it in a community that needed so badly, so desperately, and we helped with that. So for me, it's about really understanding that we need to respond. And sometimes it's about not thinking too much or not letting you get paralyzed by fear. It is about being very courageous. But personally, I have to tell you that I credit my husband, Ricardo, for keeping me centered, reminding me about the things that I need to do to make sure that I am healthy. I am well dressed because of him. It's his style, it's his taste.
When you and I met, it was in Washington, D.C., and one of the first things that caught my eye was that wonderful designer suit that you had on.
It's Pedro. Pedro Juan is an amazing Colombian designer. And what is so interesting for those people that are listening and watching this podcast is that Arabel just immediately looked at me up and down and she said, "That's custom made. Who made that?" And I was just like a little bit kind of like, oh wow, this is from everybody that is here. She was the one who said, like, that's a unique piece, and I need to know who made that. And it was such a great interaction, because I felt not only that I felt like, okay, I made the right move of wearing this for the Kennedy Center, but also that somebody's appreciating this as a wearable piece of art.
But I want to ask you a little bit more about Ricardo. So your husband, you meeting him and getting together with him, that wasn't just 1, 2, 3. It wasn't easy. It was a long process, right? There was a lot that went into it. So can you share a little bit about that?
So Ricardo and I met in the year 2000. We met and we had an amazing relationship. We lived together. We were enjoying life. And then into the year 2003, Ricardo had to go back to Brazil because he's exceeded his time of his visa. And he was imposed a 10-year penalty because at the time, marriage equality was not the law of the land. And it was not recognized that same-sex relationships could have a path to legalization through marriage. So Ricardo had to go back to Brazil, and we were a binational couple for 10 years. After 3 years living together, after being together, we became a binational couple. At the time, it was almost prohibitive to make a phone call to Brazil from the United States from cell phones or landlines. It was very expensive. So we needed to just coordinate times in which I was able to call with a calling card, going to the bodega, scratching the back, and having sometimes the most important conversations.
Cards. I remember all those numbers. Yes.
It was a calling card. And then sometimes we were having the most important, sometimes heartbreaking conversations, and you will have a voice coming in and said, you have 1 minute. So you need to just wrap it up. Time difference. I traveled to visit him as much as I could. A couple of times we met in different countries, Argentina, República Dominicana. But at the time, it was just like this revolution of technology. So we went from calling card to the two-way radio Nextel. At that time, then we can talk to each other at any time.
That's crazy. So you couldn't even have an argument, right? Because it's got to be so difficult on those two-way phones. Can't imagine that.
But exactly, it was the most polite moment of our relationship, because it was like you needed to wait until he will release the button for me to press the button, and then do the counter argument of whatever we were talking about. And then Skype came along, and then Apple came up with FaceTime. Sometimes on the little iPods, we were talking to each other when there was a Wi-Fi connection. And then the rest is history. In 10 years and a half, we saw a communications and technology revolution, from going from like you need to dial a phone with a calling card to basically being able to talk anywhere, anytime, and see each other through Wi-Fi. And then the 10-year penalty ended and coincided with the Supreme Court decision on the Edie Whistler case, which basically the Supreme Court decided that it was unconstitutional to deny legally same-sex couples legally married same-sex couples federal benefits. And that opened up for us to apply for a fiancé visa. It was approved in 2014, and he arrived March 31st to New York 2014, and 5 days later we were married at City Hall. And today he's an American citizen. We have been married now. It's going to be 11 years now. We have been together for 24 years and a half. But it is a testament that relationships at any stage is about putting the work. Even now, we need to put the work. Every single day, we need to renew our vows. Every day that we were separated, we were a national couple. I will open my eyes and I said, I want to hear his voice. I want to see him. I want to save money. At the time, I didn't have the enough resources. In a good year, I saw him once. In a bad year, I saw him once. In a good year, I saw him 4 times a year. Because it was what we could afford at the time, traveling to Brazil back and forth. So I know that relationships are not easy. I can tell you, but when there is a will, there's a way, and we are proof of that. I know people that do not go to the other county. They go from Queens to Brooklyn. They say like, that's too much work. Or people that live in Manhattan and somebody's across the river. It's just like, I don't want to do this work. It's too much work. It's too much distance. And the fact is that, we need to constantly reassess. I am not the same person that I was in the year 2000 when we met. Ricardo is not the same person. We have a lot of joy. We have a lot of sadness. We had a lot of loss, things that we gained. And that is why I say that every single day you need to renew that vow. And you need to be able to make compromises. Arabel, you don't know the amount of people that said to me during that period of time and said, you need to give up. You need to stop. You need to make sure. And for me, it was just like, if I open up my eyes and I said, I'm still want to see this person, I want to still hear this person's voice, I'm going to do it. It's not going to be perfect. We knew that we needed to make certain sacrifices. I don't recommend to anybody to have a long distance relationship, you in New York and you in Brazil for 10 years. But we took it one day at a time. And every day we were renewing those vows. And we still, to this day, we do that.
Really want to thank you for being with us. I want to thank you for your leadership through COVID and now. We very much need you now, for all the work that you're doing. And I want to thank Ricardo too, because I know he's part of something that's bigger than all of us, that keeps your spirits up and keeps your energy going and keeps that style that you have that is, so great. And then we got to see Ricardo modeling here at Runway Latinx. And I just want you to mark on your calendar that this year's Runway Latinx will be October 18th. That's a Saturday. So we definitely want to see you there, and so mark it.
We cannot wait. The last one was spectacular, organization-wise, the logistics, the presentation, the location, everything, and the people that were there, all those fashion enthusiasts and influencers. Congratulations, really top of the line. Very proud of being there and to be part of this incredible platform, showcasing our talent, the best of our talent.
Thank you. Keep it up. Hopefully, we get to have you back. And thank you for all the work that you're doing. And thank you for being so fearless.
Thank you for having me. And I'll see you very soon in Chicago.
Yes, and thank you again for being on the Chic Innovator. Thanks for watching Chic Innovator. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It's free.